Well, Shannon Wheeler is no stranger to Andrus Center conferences. The chairman of the Nez Perce Tribal Executive Committee, which he joined in 2016. I think that makes this his third elected three-year term. He's deeply knowledgeable about the Nez Perce tribal treaty rights and is an advocate for policies related to economic development and culture. He's also executive director of the film Covenant of the Salmon People, which is streaming now on PBS. It's really great. And just this past year, I see it's making the rounds through the film festival. So please join me in welcoming Shannon Wheeler.
Tatsalach, Oikalohi Miuma. Good afternoon, everyone, at the Andrus conference here. I guess I should throw energy in there. Just delighted to be here today. Edom Waswinik Titokatim Wiyowiokpu. My name is Wiyowiokpu. It's a place located on the Snake River. A lot of times our names that we have are named for purpose or named after places, and that's a name that was passed on from my grandfather, who was referenced in the book Yellow Wolf, his own story. That was a recollection of the War of 1877 that the Nez Perce had. States Cavalry at the time, and it was he was referenced as a warrior that had came back to two warriors that were in the Clearwater battle, that were, as the village was and the tribe was moving up the Clearwater, up the ridge towards the Camas Prairie, and there was two warriors that held back the army at that time, and they were both, one was wounded, it was Swan Necklace, and Yellow Wolf, who did the accounting of the war in that book, had said that he had seen a warrior on a gray horse coming back through the woods, and that was Wiyowiokpu, he said, and he picked them both up and put them on his horse and rode them out into safety. And so I carry that name, Wiyowiokpu, and Wiyowiokpu later became the Reverend William Wheeler. And he is a the third Presbyterian minister for the Nez Perce people. And so I carry that name with pride and with joy and with honor. And I'm very thankful to have that and to bring that here too as well. So Wako Payetsa Tatstamina Nimiipuu. As I speak to you today, I come to you with an open heart and a good heart to be able to express the movements of the Nez Perce Tribe today as we look into energy transition and current things that are happening on the landscape with current energy, how the energy in the Pacific Northwest, what that portfolio currently consists of and what it looks like. So with that, I just kind of like to dive into some of the things that we at the Nez Perce Tribe have really transitioned into energy for a purpose. And our first purpose was we wanted to establish net zero at our tribe. And so we installed solar panels and battery storage so that this was the quickest way that we understood that we could actually get to net zero. And so we were part of our climate commitment plan that we were establishing at the time. We said, well, let's just bounce ahead of that and get moving in that direction. And so that was actually a good move for us, and it took a while. I mean, it took one and two. There was two people that were really prying at us to get moving on this and make this happen. One of them was our then vice chairman, Chantel Green, and one of our I think she's our climate. I can't remember her exact title, but her name's Stephanie Krantz, and she had worked on some climate energy things in our climate plan, and so they led us into this direction. And so as we start developing that at the tribe, we seen that there was other opportunities, to go a little bit bigger. But these microgrids that we're developing to support our system and to help get our tribe to what we call our sovereignty, or our tribal sovereignty in the power industry, is that something that will help have impacts on the ground. And I heard a little bit of the previous panel, and I know there are a lot of concerns about that, but I think the microgrids that we're developing are probably the wave of the future and what that really looks like. So it led to other things, though. It led to understanding of this whole energy transition and a review of the current energy portfolio of the Pacific Northwest. And for us, one of the things that we have issues with is the hydropower that's being utilized on the Columbia River system of operations, and in particular the the lower Snake River and the dams that are there. So that has always been a contentious issue. And, you know, when you come to solve problems and you come to rooms like this, that we look to solve problems and we look to express our viewpoints, I think that's where we start. And these are really good times right now that, you know, we have an opportunity to make change and transition change into something that is environmental friendly. We definitely understand carbon neutral and all of the things that are around energy, but how can we do things a little bit smarter, and can we change some of the mistakes of the past, which truly for us at Nez Perce, we see the hydro system and its effects on our salmon populations as detrimental to something that was promised to us in 1855 under Article 3 of the treaty with the Nez Perce and between the United States. And so just to touch a little bit on that, as we in 1855 and previous before that 1805, when Lewis and Clark made their way through the core of discovery, we made friends with the United States at that time in the core, and we fed the Lewis and Clark expedition, gave them canoes and supplies and helped them on their journey and actually accompanied them on their journey. And so our friendship had began then and solidified in 1855 through the treaty making process, which we ceded over 13.2 million acres of land that give us, as we reserved inherent rights that we had already had. So these inherent rights were these rights to hunt and gather and fish at all usual and accustomed places, amongst other things. It's really a large umbrella of what we call, prior to that, Tamalwit, or the unwritten laws of how we live with the land. And you can call them the laws of nature, but we call them Tamalwit. And that's what we brought to the treaty grounds when we were discussing at arm's length with the United States of America this binding contract that set us where we are today, and really the obligation of the United States of America and us, the Nez Perce Tribe, have to the Constitution of the United States of America under Article 6, Clause 2, where the Supremacy Clause sits. And we are all subject to the rule of law, and we understand that. And through this process of fighting over dams and salmon, we know judges are bound by treaty. We know that congressional leaders, either by affirmation or oath, are subject to that when they raise their hand and take that oath. And as treaty holders, we know that we're subject to the rule of law. And I think the administration, as we had continued to work through the different aspects of salmon recovery, we ran into things that didn't support the work that we were trying to accomplish and trying to do. So we had to take it to court. We had to go up against environmental impact statement, record of decision, and biological opinion that didn't have the impacts that tribal nations like ours were facing. And so, through several different record of decisions, we've seen that, and we've won in court. So the administration, through this time and where we're currently at, kind of getting to the last 2020 record of decision, it kind of led us to where we're at today. And so that's just a little bit of background on the tribe and and why we're standing before you today and why we say the things that we do is because we've been here. We've been living with the land in a way that was taught to us by the land itself. And we know that the Industrial Revolution and the transition of today's life, this beautiful building, these lights, this microphone, these computers, the phones that we turn on, everything that we do today, it have impacts. But it's up to us to fix, revitalize, and make things better. And I think that's really what we as the Nez Perce Tribe look to do going into the future, working with the United States government on making that type of transition here in the Pacific Northwest, whether it be energy, transportation, irrigation, and definitely the environmental transition that needs to take place to restore a lot of the lands that are public out there that we all love to frequent, but those animals and creatures that were here before us call home. And so with that, I would just really like to talk about a couple of reality points here. And healthy and abundant salmon returns are central to tribal culture and are protected by treaty. Salmon and steelhead returning to the Snake River Basin when the Nez Perce Tribe entered into the Treaty of 1855 were 2 million fish or more. Today, over 50% of this historical run are extinct, and that's salmon and steelhead. And if we let salmon go extinct, if we don't recover salmon to abundance, we are breaking our covenant that we have with the salmon when we promised in our creation story to speak and be the voice for the salmon. And so these are ancient rules that we go by, and we are dated back. We are the oldest dated archaeological site, a village site at Cooper's Ferry, dates back 16,500 years. So we've been passing this on for many generations. And so this covenant is not abstract. It's not nostalgia or an implied responsibility to the tribes. It is an explicit legal obligation in treaties, the supreme law of the land encompassing a set of rights held since time immemorial and reserved in agreements between the tribes and the United States government. That's a reality. Reality, too, is the Snake River Basin salmon and steelhead are in dire condition and on the brink of extinction. Spring, summer, Chinook salmon and steelhead are on the brink of extinction based on the things that we have done, man-made things that we've done. I mean, we can point to overfishing, we can point to dams, we can point to all the different things that the habitat restoration that's been damaged, or the habitat that's been damaged, and the restoration work that's happening behind that to make things better. There's a lot of things that we can point to, and there are cumulative factors why salmon are in a situation that they are. And we've turned a lot of dials, and we continue to try to turn more and more dials. And some of the bigger dials we definitely need to consider turning. And hatchery origin returns make up the vast majority of total number of salmon and steelhead returning to the Snake River Basin. However, hatchery origin returns continue to be below their mitigation goals, and really have never met their mitigation goals since the inception of these hatcheries and the dams. Regionally developed, agreed to goals for healthy and harvestable runs represent less than 30% of their historical abundance. Wild spring and summer Chinook returns from 2018 to 2021 to the Snake River Basin averaged 6,050 fish, with 42% of the ESA listed populations being at or below the quasi-extinction threshold of 50 fish for 4 consecutive years. And that is a NOAA reference to a measuring mechanism that they have for determining the conditions of runs entering into each select tributary that where these native fish are going into. And returns in 2022 slightly higher, 16,048 fish, but are still well below the index for ESA delisting at 43,000 and far from the healthy and harvestable goal of 235,000. Returns in 2023 forecasted to return in 2024 have dropped back down to 7,000, around 7,000 fish. While steelhead returns from 2018 to 2021 to the Snake River Basin averaged 12,297 fish, with 19% of the ESA listed populations being at or below the quasi-extinction threshold of 50 fish or for 4 consecutive years. So the returns in 2022, there's 9,807 fish, well below the index for ESA delisting of 30,800 and healthy and harvestable abundant goal at 147,000 fish. So the forecasted natural origin steelhead returns for this year are around 9,500 fish. And so that's a reality that we're facing too. Another reality is that restoration of salmon and steelhead to healthy and abundant requires breaching of the 4 lower Snake River dams. In September 2022, NOAA Fisheries concluded that achieving healthy and harvestable stocks will require a comprehensive suite of management actions, and explicitly stated for the Snake River stocks, the centerpiece action is restoring the lower Snake River via dam breaching. As such, solving the fish and power crisis must include replacing the lower Snake River power generation with the context of larger Pacific Northwest grid transformation. The NOAA report was consistent with nearly 30 years of scientific consensus dating back to at least 1996, when the Return to the River report by the independent scientific group concluded that a focus on technological solutions should be phased out in lieu of a return to more normative river conditions, followed by the 1998 PATH report, which predicted that habitat restoration alone could not recover salmon and steelhead in the Snake River Basin. Changes in predation did not change the rank of management options. Transportation would not address impacts of hydro system, and additional future reductions in harvest were unlikely to do more than avoid extinction. But removal of the 4 lower Snake River dams offered an 80% chance of recovering Snake River spring, summer Chinook, and a 100% chance of recovering fall Chinook. And those are realities. Another reality is we can all recognize that dams and their associated power, irrigation, and transportation services provide benefits to the region and impose cost. Nothing relieves us of the opportunity or the obligation to reconsider those costs and benefits in the light of present and future needs of the ambitions of the Pacific Northwest. It's a reality. Pacific Northwest energy generation and transmission need to modernize. Development and operation of the hydroelectric dams can be viewed as phase 1 of the public land use for energy generation. We must learn that some energy generation projects on rivers and land are workable, compatible with people and fish and wildlife, but some are not, like the 4 lower Snake River dams. The theme of today's discussion is how best to enable energy transition on public lands in Idaho and across the West to ensure place-based solutions. A federal hydro system that drives salmon to extinction and violates sovereign treaties is not a place-based solution. The region is dangerously over-reliant on seasonally variable run-of-the-river hydropower. Lower late summer and mid-winter flows don't support growing demand. Grid operators forced to purchase wholesale electricity at higher cost at around 100 megawatts an hour. Seattle and City Light burned through their cash and $70 million of emergency fund and is raising rates to make up for that loss. Regional decarbonization efforts are going in reverse as utilities increase use of gas, especially here in Idaho, and coal in central Washington, or Centralia, Washington, plants to make up for hydro shortfalls. Idaho, Oregon, Washington were 3 of only 4 states in 2023 that increased carbon emissions from electricity generation. While given a hydropower turbine might generate low carbon electricity, a system dependent on run-of-the-river hydropower is unreliable. Reality. Replacing energy services of the 4 lower Snake River dams is a small lift relative to the overall need and wholly consistent with the larger transitions towards diverse and distributed resource mixes. There needs to be less dependent on hydropower for reliability, cost, and decarbonization interest. Much of the lower Snake River dam's value is battery-like, and the technology and cost trends are strongly supportive of the role of batteries in reducing reliance on run-of-the-river hydro. Elliot Mainzer, who left BPA for California and proceeds to boast about integrating over 4,000 megawatts of battery storage in less than 3 years. California has gone from 250 megawatts to approaching 8,000 megawatts of storage in just over 5 years. Those are realities. So as we look to go forward and to continue to explore what options are available and to be a part of the solutions, we look at no reconciling BPA's focus on protecting its competitive position as a provider of choice with the Biden administration's commitments to salmon recovery, distributed clean energy, and economic opportunities, and honoring treaties. The Biden administration has inescapably obligation and an historic opportunity at this time to pivot the federal Columbia River power system from an antagonist to a catalyst. The U.S. government controls one of the largest generations and transmission systems in the country. It could be establishing a model utility of the future, not protecting a business model of the past. As the country continues to acknowledge the legacy of this systematic disenfranchisements within our political, economic, and social infrastructure and environmental systems, this is an opportunity to examine and address the federal hydropower system's origins in colonialism. Pacific Northwest tribes are due and ready for an elevated role in delivering a future of shared abundance via restored salmon and clean distributed energy future. When you look at what Mainzer has done in California, when you look at what's happening everywhere else around the country, it's clear replacing the energy and capacity of the lower Snake River dams is entirely doable. Not a technology problem, not a financial problem. It's a market incentives design problem. And I'd like to think Idaho congressional representatives would welcome an orderly transition from a reliance on big government to unleashing the capital and innovation of the private sector, especially since much of the solution set would be built east of the Cascades. There will still be 27 energy generating dams in the federal system and over 250 energy generating dams in the Columbia Basin after the lower Snake River dams are breached. The 4 lower Snake River dams I heard mentioned one time were small potatoes to the overall system of the Columbia River system of operations. And that's a fact right there, that there's that many dams that are still on the system. Hydro will continue to represent a disproportionate interest in the region's resource mix. But now It also needs to play a role in the energy transition, and with it, the restoration of salmon and the United States government's compact with tribes. 5 years ago, 5 years ago, Mike Simpson stood in this room and asked, well, it may not have been this room, but stood here at the Andrus conference and asked, what if we could? Now I stand here telling you we can and we must, and we know what's needed and we know it's possible. As Nimiipuu, Nez Perce, we are bound to the salmon and the rivers. These are our life sources. We will not allow extinction to be an option for the salmon, nor for us. The United States is bound to salmon and to us by treaty, where we reserved our fisheries, and our treaty is the supreme law of the land under the United States Constitution. The federal dams on the lower Snake and main stem Columbia rivers have had and continue to have devastating impacts on the salmon and our people, burdening our treaty partnership. So today, with 30 years of scientific consensus, recently affirmed by NOAA with the explicit commitments of the United States government codified in treaty, the Presidential Memorandum, and the Six Sovereigns Agreement, we renew our commitments to advancing salmon restoration throughout the basin, including preparation for breach of the 4 lower Snake River dams and restoring tribal treaties to their rightful place under the rule of law. Our work together here opens opportunities for new partnerships with renewable energy project developers, corporate clean energy procurement teams, policymakers, investors, and all parties interested in this historic opportunity to build a future of abundance in the Pacific Northwest. Thank you.
Description of the explicit legal obligation for healthy and numerous salmon, and to get to the goal of breaching those Snake River dams is obviously on your wish list. If you were to describe 1 or 2 obstacles that are mostly in the way for you achieving that goal, what would they be?
I think the largest obstacle is education on really the overall holistic view of how we approach this. And, you know, as we, as citizens, as people of the Pacific Northwest, turn on our lights on a daily basis, we're not knowing that when we do that, we're harming fish, and nor should you know that. We're everyday citizens. We have jobs, we have children, we have places to go, we have hobbies, and we don't want to think about those things. But the federal government had put these systems in place in order to make it the world that it is. And so I think educating the people is a good start, and is actually a barrier that, you know, there's transitions that need to happen, and with change, sometimes, you know, those growing pains are difficult to take and feel. And so I think one of the main things, I think, is education for people to understand that there are possibilities that are a lot different today than there was 30 years ago. And in 10 years from now, with technology that, you know, we're seeing hydrogen cell batteries, the next generation. We're seeing small modular reactors and the opportunities there. I mean, this energy transition it's going to happen fast, and we need to be there here in the Pacific Northwest and not behind.
I guess to that point, which energy sources would you prefer or consider suitable to replacing hydro?
Well, you know, I think the portfolio really it consists of hydro, and I think we need to add to that. I mean, there needs to be more options on the shelf for the Pacific Northwest in the way that we utilize power. and the way that we utilize power as government, the way, through conservation measures, I think that's a first starter. I mean, we should, all federal buildings should have some type of renewable energy that they're utilizing, whether it's battery storage, wind, solar, and utilizing those conservation measures that take the pressures off of the current areas where we lean heavy on energy. So I think that's a good place to start. There is through conservation.
And you mentioned this at the top, but how are the Nimiipuu invested in microgrid technologies today?
Well, we've been developing. Currently, we're just finishing up a multitude of housing developments, our housing deployments, and so many of the community houses in the community of Lapwai, which indeed is a small community, but when you look at every house there that's on the south side of the community that has solar attached to it now, I mean, that's a start. And developing this battery storage that's in each of these houses and the solar that's on top of those, I think, we're relieving the grid from electrons that need to actually be on there for other purposes. And I think helping that transitional goal from, the grid is 30 years out because of easements or right-of-ways or just actual room on the grid. We need to do our part in that manner. And I think that's really a big place where we're at is developing those microgrids to alleviate pressure on the highway, I guess.
And a point of clarification, one of these questions, Chairman, does the project now provide enough energy for all of the community?
Well, I think that's more of a technical question for our Nimiipuu Energy Director, but I think we're developing a lot of energy for our needs. I haven't seen the report on that yet, but that's our intention is to be self-reliant on the energy that we're able to capture from the sun.
So earlier today, there were some lessons learned, and one of the questions here for you is what advice would you give to renewable energy developers on public lands relative to working with engaging with tribes?
I think they definitely need to take in consideration the environment, migratory patterns of birds and wildlife and the impacts there that you'll have, and try to come up with the areas of least impact or least conflict that would be beneficial for the development of any of your projects that you're developing. And I think those can be fleshed out through the NEPA process, but there is a need for it. So there is a need for a means to an end. And so versus putting all the weight on water, where, water's looked at as a commodity, and it should be looked at as living, and because water's life. And so when we take too much emphasis and put it on something like that, it's on the backs of whatever's in that area. And so if we're able to alleviate some of that and take some less pressure off some of those areas that we pressure heavy now, then I think as we look to continue for the means to an end, we're able to say we have 10 million acres of grassland there. Can we utilize 1 million acres of that for energy production that we're going to need in our transition? So those are those types of balancing acts, I think, that we're going to have to be able to decipher moving through this that have least conflict.
We talked a bit earlier about siting. One of the questions here are there renewable energy project ideas that could be in proximity of the Lower Snake River dams that could easily tie into existing transmission lines?
I believe so. I believe there's opportunities in the Hanford area, for instance, a place that has a footprint already with the activity that has happened over there since the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and through the 80s. There's opportunities there, but there's also opportunities around the dams too as well, that where the infrastructure currently sits, that battery storage is an opportunity in those areas, because the rivers are basically used as batteries, and if you can store energy there, then that would be a great opportunity. So as we continue to look at the through the glass of opportunities, then I think we'll start to see more and more. And I know there's a lot more smarter people out there than me, so I think they'll figure it out.
Chairman, could you say a few words about the progress and success of the solar power training and installation on the Nez Perce land today?
Yeah, that's been, when we first set out, we were going to try to recruit 8 installers. I think we ended up having 35 installers come forward and want to be trained. And so our workforce development started up, and we started some livable wage jobs. And I mean, that's, these are, our area is, we don't have a lot of jobs. We have people that may not want to work in an office, that people that want to work outside. And I think it has helped establish a lot of people and bring a lot of self-esteem to those workers, that, I'm doing something meaningful, and people like to see progress, and people like to see their work and look back behind them and actually have to visualize that. Some people can't look at a computer and say, look at my work here, and it's difficult to visualize that. So some of the people that we brought on have been able to enjoy that success and that self-enrichment of knowing that I've learned something and I'm impacting the environment, I'm impacting my community, and I'm making this place a better place.
So it was just a few more minutes for questions, but synthesizing 2 of these, is one of the 6 settling parties with rights preferences to develop replacement energy. Does the tribe have plans to develop renewable generating resources? And secondarily, will tribes lead the Northwest in this effort?
We want to be a part of it. I don't know if we'll lead, but we definitely want to be a part of it, and we want to support the energy needs of the Pacific Northwest and those that are moving forward, whether it's in production of energy or conservation of energy, wherever we can fit in. We want to be able to do our part. And we've done some self-education with bringing in energy producers that we may not understand everything that they're doing. So we want to get a better understanding of that and have those types of conversations of, well, what type of partner can we be? We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the grid lines. We don't own the grid. We don't have any interconnection queue, any ties yet to where we're able to put our energy onto the grid, unless it's through a agreement that we have with the existing power company. And so how can we help? How can we be a part of that? And I think as a tribe, financially, we can commit things and we can get dollars that can help projects move along. So I think, finding those partners out there, finding new partners is something, I think, as a tribe, what we'll look to do and where we fit. And over the course of time, this is we at tribal nations look at the gaming industry as $1 billion industry, but we look at the energy industry as $1 trillion industry that it is. And there's opportunity for us to be able to, as tribal nations, play a role in the future of energy.
Well, that's really exciting. And here's the final question. We have students in the audience today, and they ask, how can younger people, students, get involved in a meaningful way, specifically to support tribal efforts?
I think any type of advocacy and education that you can get or help with in different areas, whether it's writing your congressional leaders or small grassroots efforts, are really truly important to be able to activate yourself into these areas and to place yourself into these areas. And by being in this room, I think that's a good start of how you can impact change and be a part of change, because you're the ones that are going to make it happen.
Please join me in thanking Chairman Wheeler today.
Thank you.